This week we look at 3 photos I bought on eBay last year. They were sold separately, but we can see they all started out life in the same album, as the seller has included the captions. He's cut them out from the album pages and slipped them in with the photos, and we can see the album paper and the handwriting is the same on all of them. Concentrating on the photos, we've got a view of Victoria from the peak looking west. We've got Hong Kong Harbour from RNH, and we've got the Men of War anchorage, Hong Kong. The seller has dated them all to 1902, so the first thing I want to check is whether that's accurate or not. The view over the city is a good photo for that. There's usually some construction underway we can use to date the scene. Now, we saw a very similar view in my first book. The last few photos in volume 1 are a sequence of views of Central from the peak, and it includes this one, which we dated to 1907, and that was based on this view of the Hong Kong Hotel, and the southern wing had collapsed, dating the picture, as I say, to about 1907. Here's the original photo. So this is what I cropped to give the photo we saw in the book. It's a lovely sharp photo, but unfortunately it suffered some quite severe insect damage at some time in its life. But never mind, the section that we're interested in is undamaged. So let me line them up next to each other, and then we can compare the two scenes. Here we are. This is our new photo on the left and the book photo on the right, which you can see again is much, much clearer. So here's that Hong Kong Hotel just next to the clock tower on Pedder Street, with its missing southern wing. But in our photo here, the southern wing is still standing. So that means this picture must be earlier than 1907. Now, looking in front of the hotel, all this land here is quite recently reclaimed. Queen's Building and Prince's Building already standing, but here's just a big construction site. Now look carefully at Prince's Building and see if you can spot something unusual about it. It's this corner here. There's a big building, and it was built in sections. If you imagine it looking like a slice of Battenberg cake, the top corner here was built first, then this one, then this one. And when this picture was taken, the last corner here hadn't been built yet. Here's when it's finished, and it's a complete square. Now, according to our notes on Gulo, this section here was finished first in 1902, and they worked their way around, and the last section here finished in 1904. And if that's true, that dates the picture to sometime between 1902 and 1904. Now, our next clue is this building here. It's on the opposite side from Prince's Building across Icehouse Street, and it was the King Edward Hotel. And the notes we've got for that say it was completed in 1902, and we've got newspaper reports. They say the construction was all finished by September of that year, and the hotel opened to the public in October. So if we come across to the building site over here, if this picture was really taken in 1902 and the construction is finished in September of that year, that seems to be a lot of building to get done in 9 months. So I wonder if this picture was either taken literally at the very start of the year 1902, or to me it seems more likely a little bit earlier than that, maybe 1901. And then with that in mind, I think we need to go and take another look at our notes here. You know, for this to have been finished in 1902 and then these coming around here, perhaps 1903, 1904, yeah, it just doesn't all match up with this hotel being finished by September 1902. Anyway, enough about the date. Let's take a look at the other two photos. I've put them side by side so we can compare the edges, this sort of central section here. Let me zoom in a little bit so I can show you what I'm interested in. So there are clearly a lot of similarities. We've got the go-downs or warehouses here at the Kowloon Wharves. You can see that over here. We've got the white ensign showing that this is a Royal Naval ship. Same over here. And then we've got these 1, 2, and possibly 3 junks that look the same as well. And finally, down in the foreground, we've got this same building here. Similarities, but also differences. Clearly we've got this bamboo in front of the building. I think it's bamboo anyway, down here, which we don't see. We got a change in the junks here. Notice this one is end on to us. I think it's just on the move, either coming or going. We don't see it at all in this picture. And the alignment's just a bit different as well. So the end of the go down building here comes down close to the center of this building, but over here it's quite a bit further along the roof line. What that means then is that the two photos were definitely taken on the same day, but from slightly different locations and slightly different times. So the photographer got up and walked around and took the second picture from another location. Now, unfortunately, that means we won't get a perfect match if we try and merge them into a panorama. But I'm going to try it anyway, and let's just see how it turns out. So, as expected, not perfect, but I think still useful enough to keep. We'll work with this version for the rest of the video. My next question then is, what are we looking at? What can we see in the picture? And for some help with that, I'm going to turn to the HK Maps website, which is always a wonderful resource for old photos like this. Right, here we are then. I've got the Hong Kong Historic Maps website at the top. It's the map viewer that we're interested in. We're roughly looking in this sort of area. Somewhere in Wanchai, we're looking across towards the Hung Hom. And I know they've got a couple of charts of the harbour that I'm interested in. We'll start off with one from 1912. Here we go. So the big landmark in Hong Kong, of course, is the dockyard. We've got the big dry dock, we've got slips here, we've got chimneys, we've got workshops, so quite a lot to see. Unfortunately, they are not visible in our picture. So they're off to the right. We can't see those here. What we can see, though, are these lines of buildings, and that's what we're looking at here. So these were the buildings that were the housing for the dockyard workers. Next on the picture, I can see quite a large chimney, and on the charts, these were prepared for sailors, and any landmarks, visible landmarks on the shoreline would be highlighted, including chimneys. So we can see a CHY here, CHY and a CHY, so two possible choices. We can write this one off though. The Kowloon Electric Light Works, this was the first power station for China Light and Power. It doesn't open until 1903, so it's a little bit later than our pictures. So I think the chimney we're looking at belonged to the Macdonald's engineering works. Next over here we've got a road running up the hill with a bit of a bend and some large buildings at the top. We can see those as well. Here's the road with the bend, and the buildings belong to the British Army. They're Gun Club Hill Barracks. Now looking at the picture, these large buildings here seem to be quite close, but that's an optical illusion because we're actually looking at the peninsula end on. We've got to come right down to the southern end of the peninsula to see the buildings. Don't be fooled though, they're not Holt's Wharf. Holt's Wharf again is built after this picture is taken. But we can go back a little bit. There's another chart here from 1903, and that does show the scene in our photo. So these big sheds marked coal. Of course, at this time, steam power reigned supreme, so lots of coal needed. So these were coal sheds down at the tip of the peninsula. Up above the coal sheds, we can see a hill with a flagstaff on top, and that's shown here as the signal station. And next door, the curiously named swinging hut, which you might think is this building, but again, that's a sort of optical illusion. We have to go back up the peninsula in the distance, and it's the observatory with the long building of Knutsford Terrace below it here. That's what we can see there. At this time, again, remember we're at the start of the 1900s, and the first area here has been reclaimed. You can see the buildings over here, but most of the original shoreline still exists. So hard to believe it now, but the southern tip of Tsim used to be this big sandy beach. And at the back of the beach were some houses with a wonderful view, called Victoria View. We can see them here. Really should be Victoria Views because they look across Victoria Harbour to the city of Victoria and then up to Victoria Peak. These buildings on the end here we mentioned, they won't stay for too much longer. This land will be reclaimed and then the railway line will run down here and the terminus building of the old KCR, the Kowloon Canton Railway, will be built on this site. These will all be cleared away. The last little landmark are two towers visible in the background here, and they belong to the Marine Police Station at Tsim Sha Tsui. Now if we keep on to the left, we come to the second picture. We've got Stonecutters Island in the distance, and then we've got this great mass of shipping in the harbour. It's incredible how busy the harbour used to be. And an explanation of who they were, we can come back to the chart. We see this was the limit of the man-of-war anchorage. Remember, man-of-war was mentioned on the photo caption as well. So this was an area of the harbour, and it was allocated for the Royal Navy's ships. It was in front of what we call Admiralty today, which is where the Navy had their dockyard. There were lots of these big buoys here, buoy number 4, buoy number 1, buoy number 3. So that would be where the visiting ships would tie up. But there's also one with a permanent resident. So HMS Tamar had its own buoy here. You can see Tamar over here on the left. Coming in closer to the shore, and lots of smaller boats and mostly Chinese junks and sampans, until over in the right corner we come to these quite different looking little sailing boats, very Western style. Now we've seen Western style boats before in volume 3 of my books, where we looked at the launch Paula. Here it is. So here's the Paula under construction, and here it is pulled up onto a slip, and the sign at the back here reads Our King. Let's have a closer look at that. Here's the original picture. Here we go, Our King. So Our King's shipyard, well known in Hong Kong for building Western style launches and sailing boats. And it's got several important clues in this picture. So we've got the shipyard, the main building is sort of a mat shed roof with a raised center section. It's got these piers sticking out into the water. We've got buildings in the background at an angle to the seafront, and just beyond the shipyard we've got this line of low buildings, just 2-story terrace buildings, and above them all we've got the RNH, which was the Royal Naval Hospital. So these are all the key things that we see in our picture. So obviously seen from the other direction, but here we've got the roofs sticking out into the harbour, we've got the raised central section, we've got the line of low buildings, we've got the building at an angle to the seafront, and then we've got the viewpoint of the photographer, which would be up here somewhere. So we know the location. This was in Wanchai. It's very close to the junction where Wanchai Road turns away from Johnston Road. But I was hoping that we could see some of these other buildings. This one to me looks quite distinctive. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 sort of slightly lower section, and then 2 are higher here. Got a line of 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, line of 7, and a little building here as well. And I thought we might be able to see them in the panoramas that we looked at in some previous videos. Do you remember the panoramas from 1909? Let's have a look at those. Wanchai over here, and at first glance thinking how can we possibly see anything there, but remember these old pictures are incredibly detailed. We zoom in. Here's the hospital building. Here are low buildings. Here are buildings at an angle to the seashore. Here's the raised center section with the pier coming out into the water. So these are all the buildings we were looking at, but I couldn't see my roof here, or my little building that I was looking for. And I think we get an explanation for that in the other panorama. This one taken from the island, and Wanchai this time over on the right. So the Royal Naval Hospital up here, buildings at an angle, low-rise buildings, and the raised center roof of our king here. But what I want to look at are three little blobs, 1, 2, and 3. And what they are trams. So between our sort of 1901, 1902 photo and our 1909 photo, in 1904, Hong Kong's tramways start running. And it reminds me of when I was living in Kennedy Town and the MTR came to the area, and it unleashed a huge amount of demolition and redevelopment, because developers knew that people wanted to be close to MTR stations and would want to come and move to Kennedy Town. And I'm guessing that when the tram lines were put in around here, something similar happened, and our little older buildings were probably replaced by these much larger new buildings here. Well, that about wraps up today's video, though I would be interested to hear if you've got any views of these buildings from the front. So we're looking at a view of Wanchai taken from the harbour about 1900, somewhere around there. And if you've got any pictures of Macdonald's engineering works, that would be good to see as well. I haven't seen that in a photo before. Well, if you can help with that, or if you've got any questions, please let us know in the comments below. And I'll also put links to more information about the topics we've covered in the notes below. And that really is the end. So thank you very much for watching.